Since we have Carol, Doug, myself, and Ed, and Bob is
Running late.
running late. Okay.
Said he'll be here about 2:30.
So the first item, so do you want to start, or you want me to go over the attachments?
Well, could we start with the organizational chart first?
I don't mind. I had questions too. Okay, so let's just do that.
Well,
Okay, what is your questions?
okay, so given the two things that are in front of us, the proposed and the by name current, okay. To me, it seems like the only difference was in the public works column. And instead of having 5 people, there were going to be 6 now. Am I correct, or am I missing something?
Nope, you're correct. So there were two staffing changes that we're proposing.
Okay.
Right in front of you. One is we currently have a part-time inspector position, which used to be a intern. And so ultimately, we'd like to convert that to a full-time position and have that as an environmental specialist.
Oh.
And anticipating
You have 3, that was my question.
where.
I don't know if it was a too many copy and paste
Oh.
on the proposed, because yeah, we didn't have something added to it.
Yeah, no,
So
that's,
that's a mistake, right?
yes, it's
Okay.
only one.
This one here, because otherwise it would be
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, my apologies. So to convert that part-time to a full-time as an environmental specialist, anticipating succession planning and then, in the future. And then, the other one was I think it was a GIS. That's what it was.
You look here, Doug?
What?
It's supposed to be GIS.
Yeah. So then the other one is a GIS specialist. So we've paid Passarella, and quite a bit of money to, take in all of our assets, and ultimately we have to, as we put in new things, or even update
Doug, you want to try and
existing.
use this one? Oh,
Just-
okay. I'm sorry. We're trying to get Doug plugged in.
So then my question, Charles, is because you're really planning on this environment specialist 1 as a backup for the succession plan from the one above, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's gonna be a temporary increase, because once that leave, then we're gonna go back to 1, 2, 3 people.
Well,
So
well-
it's not,
The one above shows L as stormwater specialist. The one below shows her as an environmental specialist 2.
Correct.
What did we do? Change the category?
Yeah, we would be looking to change the title and you'll see as we grow, like Tech 1, Tech 2, Operator 1, Operator 2, that way there's opportunity for growth within the organization. So like for utilities, as an example, an Operator 1 would be your entry level. Operator 2 they would get additional licensing, higher licensing, and again, they could grow.
okay, so then my question is, a stormwater specialist is below an environmental specialist?
They were intended to have the same title, environmental specialist, which one says specialist.
So we're just taking stormwater specialist and changing it to a new name,
Yes.
environmental specialist 2.
Yes,
And then the last one is a mistake.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
remove that.
yeah.
So,
That
yeah,
one should be GIS.
just because I'm under this.
Okay.
Well, I don't see GIS.
Got it.
Okay, so basically you're proposing to increase the head count by 1 full-time position.
Yes.
Okay,
I just need to know.
And on the back end, for your internal documentation, you've got succession planning mapped and,
Yeah.
Or at least an idea of what that looks like. That doesn't have to be forward facing, but
Yes.
Right. Okay, and then as you look into the future, are we going to be adding people like every year, or?
Really, honestly, it depends on the future of, the commons, if you choose to do anything with that. From a utility standpoint, we've got to get everybody licensed, trained up. We haven't had a full staff really since I started on the utility side, so
Okay,
I really don't anticipate growing anymore unless it is a succession planning event where we have a year gap where we're funding a second position in order to phase that
And it would be nice if we do this, even if it's biannually, for us to be able to pull this up and you can heat map it to say, let's say utilities due to projects, this is an area that is yellow, meaning that we're getting close to capacity there, or if it's red, we're really operating at capacity, because that gives us an idea of where we're at today in alignment to business as usual responsibility, project related items, and where we're at from a resourcing perspective. Because that's one of the areas that we have lacked in the past, is having the ability to have oversight, and we've brought a lot of stuff in-house, which has been, I think, a cost save and a quality improvement. So it's really nice for us to know where staff is, where we're at, where are we running really lean, and where there's risks aligned to projects. So maybe like as a biannual update, here's our update on staff. I know that you provide staff updates, but I think at least twice a year, if we could get into weeds on that, it would help.
Well, you could have multiple people in each of these positions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the issue is, I thought what Carol was asking is, are there other squares
They need to be
that
added.
need to be added? I
Right.
thought that
For
was the
future
question.
consideration.
Huh?
What you would consider for future consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, looking
But we don't know
ahead.
what they are now.
Yeah. We don't know what they
No.
are now.
Okay.
Well, do you know?
Again, it kind of depends on if you do anything up at the commons with regards to any parks amenities. Obviously looking into rangers or, part-time park rangers type things. But for the utility side, there's a lot more regulatory components that are coming out, which Austin is really the only person doing. We have staff doing samples, but again, until we can get our footing and get fully staffed, I don't anticipate any additional growth on that side.
Okay, so where is the Pelican Preserve person?
page.
Pelican vacant, okay,
So-
sorry.
Page.
Carol,
I didn't see that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because
Oh,
one of the things, and speaking with Daniel, I think it's better operationally, because a lot of the projects that they're doing out there in Pelican are more than a one-person show, is taking that 100% of Pelican and dividing and putting 25% per each of the maintenance staff. You're still getting 100%. It's just
So you're not
divided over.
It's not a dedicated.
It's not a dedicated person. That way, if they have to go put the sign up on the guardhouse, that takes more than one person to do that.
But I
They're
don't know,
grinding.
was that, without Bob being here, is that solving the problem that Pelican had put forward? Because I thought part of it was having a dedicated person, a central point of contact, not necessarily the allocation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to make sure that we're solving the problem as it was presented.
I think the original conversations we had, we didn't even know if this was going to warrant a full-time position over at Pelican. And, we've been flexing staff over there, and we're not necessarily, even on the Gateway side, we're not doing the preventative maintenance at this point. I mean, we're triaging, lights are out, we blow the boardwalk, we do those types of things. From an operational standpoint, it's better to split that across all 4 of our maintenance staff. But if you want to dedicate one person solely to Pelican and they're flying solo over there and they're handling everything, we can do that too.
I don't know. I just think it needs to be proposed, because I could see a value in having those responsibilities over multiple people. Because if you don't need 100%, then we can allocate them somewhere else. And I'm sure, knowing Pelican the way that we do, if they only need 80%, they would like to only pay for 80%.
Well, and we don't have any person in this district that only wears one hat. Everybody wears multiple.
Which is good.
hats.
Yeah. Okay. The one thing that I do.
I think
ahead.
the idea behind having a person dedicated to Pelican was that so Pelican projects would not have to compete with all the other projects and get in line, so to speak, to have people go out there and to do the project. You would have one person there and they would do that project. The idea being to get things done faster, rather than having to be scheduled and worked into this, in a project or a repair or something worked into all the other projects that are competing. Do you not see that as an advantage or?
From what Daniel has relayed to me, is that the majority of the projects that they're doing out there, if it's painting monuments, if it's replacing light bulbs, if it's grinding sidewalks, they've been grinding a bunch of sidewalks, is,
And
more-
there he is.
it's
He
more than a
appears.
one-person job. You want to speak to it?
Yeah, I've got an opinion on it. So,
Okay,
my thoughts when it comes to the amount of work is no matter what, Pelican would be getting 8 hours worth of work, whether it be two employees for 4 hours, if that's what it required is, they're still getting 40 hours worth of service in one way or another
okay,
every single week. So you would still get the equivalent of manpower for an 8-hour day, whether it be one person for 8 hours, or if it's two people for 4 hours, or if it's a big project, then it takes everybody, then does that make sense
yeah.
of how I was trying to break that?
Well, I
up?
was
But you would,
thinking
you would
of
get no matter what,
Smaller projects, not big things, but like,
you would still get prioritized
you
because
know, a street that has some sidewalks coming up and they need to be sanded down or ground down,
that's a 2-man job.
a 2-man job.
Yep,
So what you're saying is you would have to put somebody else out there anyway.
yes.
Okay,
So that's how I was looking at it, was where instead of looking solely as one person alone out there by themselves,
Hours.
it's looking at the hours, the hourly
Okay.
breakdown. You get 40 hours a week, whether it's 1-man or a 2-man or a 3-man show, you're
Or
still
woman.
getting that amount, or
or
woman,
woman,
work or human person. Excuse me.
after all, we can
Yes,
all run
that-
machines.
That's the mindset behind it.
There's stuff up that doesn't need it.
Okay,
You got
Would-
that, right, Tony?
Yes.
Thank you.
is there any, would Pelican have to quote unquote stand in line with all the other projects to do this?
No,
Or
you're still getting 40 hours a week, no matter how you cut it.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I think.
Now I understand. it. Okay,
Carrie, what you're asking is, am I gonna run into the problem that I have something needs to be done, and then Daniel or staff would say, we'll get that to you, but we need to fix this, this, and this in Gateway, and then we'll get back to you. That's what you're
Right.
asking, right?
yeah,
That won't be the case,
it won't. Okay.
because I'll have
But
no
just knowing,
excuse.
but even,
It could be,
but
No, well, I'll
That
have
being
no,
said,
because I owe you 40 hours worth of work every single week.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's where your planning and
Yes.
sequencing becomes very important. So you're allocating a certain amount of hours each, let's say each week or each month, for that. If that person has multiple responsibilities and there's a higher priority, technically, it's gonna comes down to scheduling and prioritization.
It's gonna
So
be
except what you're saying is you're committing
It's
that those
40
hours will be
hours,
dedicated. Yeah,
correct.
Okay.
Well, the same could be said on the opposite. If there's a higher priority issue over at Pelican that needs to be addressed, we're gonna
Flip
flex.
flop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And ultimately, you still have, Mark as the supervisor for public works is shifting back and forth across the board, and he can fill any need as needed.
Yeah.
Or
Okay, so-
myself,
So
so,
we had put in the budget, I think it was 60,000 this year for this person. And I see that that position is vacant. And I think you just filled another maintenance tech position
So
not
that's-
too long
that's
ago.
the role that we're
Is,
working on filling right now. We actually have an offer letter that's been accepted, and he's
well,
working his way through.
are we paying too low is my point.
No, actually,
I'm getting to.
the 3 new hires with this one, if this one makes it through the pipeline, hopefully, they all came in at $20 an hour. So they're all starting at the same baseline.
Okay,
Originally, it was slated on the Gateway side to be $22 an hour, and the Pelican Preserve was supposed to be $19 an hour. I actually did some cost savings, and I lowered everybody across the board coming in at 20. So
Okay.
instead of $22 for 2 and 19 for 1, I kind of split the difference. And
okay.
it was still cost savings after you do the math.
So looking to next year for budgeting, that 60,000 is going to be an okay figure to keep?
Correct.
Okay,
So one of the, if you don't mind just staying, 'cause, this kind of I would imagine would fall within your area. We've had some conversation, I know that I've had it a couple times, around looking at maybe establishing an internal, gateway security persons. I'd like for us to dive into that a little bit, because on the surface, I think I can justify it with the amount of the lack of oversight that we have, let's say on weekends and at night when we just don't have staff around, whether that's, people being on the fields when they shouldn't be, parking issues that we Did I miss something? Oh, okay. We just have limited oversight. So especially when we, building out the commons area, we're going to need, some additional oversight there. I know about what prices might be if you compare it to other security, but I don't necessarily think I want to vendor it out. My personal opinion would be to have it as an internal, with our own vehicle. Because again, deterrence. So it's not just monitoring our facilities, but to me, there's also a deterrent with having, gateway security, have it look like a security vehicle roaming the community. Could be a deterrent for speeding some other areas, but I can't tell you with any data to back it up if the cost would justify either the saves or any type of deterrent.
So Doug, Chelsea and I have been kind of throwing this around in the background about a park ranger that would be able to rove between some of the facilities. Obviously, you get into issues, as we already had a conversation this morning with Weiser about issues. So I think maybe taking it on internally would be a little bit more practical. How that looks and what the positions look like yet, we haven't really put that much thought into it, but we are thinking about it because we were talking about it earlier this week about nighttime closing up here and having just a presence. Well, if I make a pool staff attendant go out there and try to be the presence, it doesn't really show the message that you're trying to convey. Like you were just talking about having the actual physical presence with a vehicle with some sort of title that goes along with it that's got some sort of authority.
And even like some of the issues that we've had just around the pool, some of our hours, whether the gate's going to be open or closed, sometimes that just really boils down to whether we want staff to stay till 7:30 to close a gate versus having them physically on presence. So, it could be a way for us to, to be able to have multiple impacts and value in the air. So my only answer is just continue to dive into it.
Mhm.
And if
So Doug, are you thinking that this ranger,
I call it security, I'm staying
call
away
it
from calling
security.
it a ranger because I think it's more on the security than it is on a park ranger. That's just my opinion, even though that might be some of the responsibility.
but are you looking to basically do the same thing as Tony has pointed out over and over? Observe and report. That's it.
Not necessarily. It would be observe, report, take action within what is available to us. So as an example, I've been out at the fields and there's been people either playing on the field, whether it's, after dark or whatever. I can go up and say, hey, do you, either two scenarios. One, do you have reservations or do you live in Gateway? If that's no, do you have a permit to be, no. Okay, at that point, I can ask them to leave, but I have no authority. And I've been told to F off many times, regardless of, what I stated my position. So I have to call the sheriff's department. Normally it takes them 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, to get.
And by that time, they're gone.
Yeah, well, maybe not, but, because the whole point is to get them, get people not to be on the fields. But if there was someone within a security capacity that could say that has some limited authority, that says, hey, I'm with, Gateway, security. If you don't have legitimate reason to be here, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Now, they can't do anything physically. They can't arrest anyone. They can't do anything like that. But at least there's a presence of some type of, official capacity. And then they would do probably the same thing I would do is they'd call the sheriff's department, have somebody come out. But I guarantee you someone in a uniform might get a little bit better response than me. Plus, I don't necessarily want to put myself in that position.
Plus, that person can be delegated the ability to say, you're trespassing, you have no right to be here. Then you call law enforcement. Law enforcement says, yes, I'm the designated person, agent for the district.
And even on another level.
On Doug's scenario, you
Yeah.
could do it.
And even on another level, again, parking is an issue, not only on the roads with schools, but even here. Even if we had someone come on and literally just putting a warning, but we're not citing anyone, we're not issuing fines, but literally just putting something on someone's windshield. This is illegal parking, blah, 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 whatever the language is like.
So are you thinking 24/7?
Not necessarily, no. We'd have to figure out when the peak hours are, when there's the highest opportunity for.
But you're mainly talking at
I'm
night.
thinking primarily weekends, when there's very little presence, but it's when our facilities are at their high use, you know? Or even times where, let's say during the, maybe during the summer when people shouldn't be on certain areas. So I don't know what the hours are. I have an idea of when I think we have the most potential for problems, which could be resolved by having some type of presence, but there needs to be more research, I think.
And I could definitely see that as we go more and more into the commons area.
Sure, yeah.
And develop.
And that's what I'm trying to gear up for,
You
to
know.
be honest.
Keeping people off of the basketball courts at 9 o'clock at night, type thing, or whatever.
Okay, so
I don't think,
mental no, but
Yeah.
not for now, but that we'll be looking at that next year.
But it's also something you can't, that's not something you build out in 2 or 3 months. Because you're talking about, there's training, we have to build an infrastructure, vehicle, all that stuff. So that's why I'm trying to bring it to our attention now. Because it might take us a year to build out a program, plan, hire multiple individuals, create a training, get vehicles, all that stuff. So if it's feasible, but we need to be thinking about it from a budgeting perspective, because it could be a phase 1.
Right. So basically a year from now, as we start talking about the budget.
That's
again,
what I would.
you would like to see the framework of a program,
Correct. And
And
for a start. to
having
implement.
priced it out and tell us your opinions and all that
So
sort
we
of
could
stuff.
be implementing in a year, in my opinion.
Implementing the year.
Implementing in a year. On some level, it could be part-time, it could be limited hours, but I don't think we just jump right in and say, hey, we got a full-time position doing all this stuff. I think in order to do it correctly, you have to slowly phase it in, vehicle, program, training. You're probably gonna have to hire multiple individuals, do limited hours, maybe it's just a weekend rotation, figure out what works before you jump all in with a full-time,
So you're talking about budgeting for this,
potentially,
an implementation program this year.
potentially.
So that's what I was saying, I think
Implement.
we added a part-time there.
so why don't we do this? Let us kind of talk through what we see that as and what their job duties entail as we go through this budgeting conversation and potentially put together a job description. I'll tell you right now, I'm thinking seasonal part-time, really, I mean, we shut down the soccer complex during the summer. So beyond the security duties, what else do we need? Where else are we missing things? So let us work through that and we'll come back to you guys.
Yeah, the biggest step 1 for me was, is it internal versus external? Is it vendor versus internal? And if you guys have already had some due diligence there, then it's okay. If it's internal, what are we missing? Where's the, cost benefit? I have no idea what the costing on it is. I mean, I have an idea, but,
Yeah,
Yeah, just don't use the word security.
If you use the word security, you're.
Don't
gonna
use that
drastically
word security.
hike the
That'll
market
get you.
analysis.
You don't
Yeah.
want to use that word.
okay.
Use
Yeah,
rover, whatever, but don't
Access
suggest you're doing
Yeah.
security.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know a ton about it, so. And I know that you're having some conversations with Lee County about appetites for a satellite, or I don't know what you call it,
Outreach
an
center,
outreach center, which,
which we were successful.
very,
So we're going to be working through that and bringing back hopefully some type of either MOU or interlocal to you all for your consideration in the coming months.
yeah, I'm sure they might even have
They're-
some input on if we did something internally, how they could partner or roles and responsibility. that
Yeah,
kind of-
they're very excited and interested on working with us and having a seat somewhere in the admin building for an outreach center.
so do you want to just pencil it in now, a part-time position here?
Yeah, and if
Take
you
it-
guys want
okay,
to,
so-
whatever you want to call it, fine, but I think we should, and we can make that gray,
Mhm.
that bot, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Where are you gonna put that?
It would be under public work.
Public work?
Public Works, Park and Rec.
We'll pencil in a part-time.
okay, so on that topic, I know Carol brought it up, so the certification, are all staff, all the supervisors, I know there were a few that were missing are we,
We're pushing for those staff to get the required licenses for
okay,
their
so then
positions.
my question is pushing and required, right? Those two just don't go. Okay. So if it's required, then to me, my expectation would be there's a deadline, that's what it has to be done. I don't know if we have multiples with the same issue, we have one, but if it's a requirement and they're getting paid for it, that needs to, we need a date.
Yeah, no, we have to go back and review their probably outdated job description and see if it was a requirement of that role.
And in that regard, I think anyone that has a manager or supervisor level, in addition to their job certification, I think we should find some type of management, training, so they know how to manage people, they know how to conduct one-on-ones. To me, that's really important in our organization. That speaks a lot to the culture. And do we have a code of ethics or anything that all employees have to take?
I think we have, I think it's in our handbook, right?
They could take that 4-hour exam, I guess, to it.
It's not. a co-
We
Need
have,
to, if we don't have something, we need to look.
There's
to
an
see if
attempt to it, but it's not.
the existing handbook is real rough. Right now, we have an updated handbook sitting with Suzanne for about 6 weeks,
Yeah.
8 weeks now, that I believe encompasses a code of ethics, but I will follow up and make sure.
And I think if we could probably find something or at least co-create it. To me, it would involve a couple things. It would just be like code of ethics, conflict resolution, what's our goal, all that stuff, just so everyone, if you come in, you take this, Gateway Gateway District 101, it covers everything, what's expected of you, all that stuff. How we behave to one another, our code of conduct within, staff, managers, board, all that.
That's
good
an
stuff.
employee handbook.
And it would be an employee training when you go to any organization, offboarding.
Anything else? So we'll move on from this. We're good? Okay,
Okay,
Yeah, we're good.
We'll add in that for time.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so then let's go to.
So,
Yes.
Wait a minute, so Doug, you're also thinking that we're gonna want to fund this part-time position as well as beginning of a structure.
Yeah, so there's two
In
components of it.
25.
There's
So we're
resource and
also
then
gonna
there's
Back from staff, a framework
yeah, we'll work on that.
of some sort,
Can you
how
just-
this would work.
we just go back to the org chart really quick. I just want to look under landscaping.
One position. Scott Holtz, who's our landscape lead.
So as of right now, anything regarding landscaping, whether it's lawn, irrigation, whatever, we're still gonna 100% farm that out to our vendors. There's no
Well,
design.
That's a separate chart. That would be subcontracts.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying we're not,
We're not doing anything in-house right now.
okay. I know we had talked about maybe having someone at irrigation or someone that could do some of the stuff that we get charged a premium for. some of the
So
areas.
that, I would say we would have that conversation after we go through and redo our irrigation lines. Because our vendor they don't even know where half of our irrigation
yeah.
lines are, so.
I was just posing, we had, again,
Yeah.
some of this, to Carol's point, was future. Now, future to me doesn't mean we put it on the org chart if it's 3 years down the road. But if maybe there's consideration within the next 12 to 24 months, it might be something for us to think about. But okay, if it's not on here, that's fine. Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
so,
I'm done with that.
so speaking of staffing, I asked Laura to put together, benefits are our biggest hurdle from a hiring standpoint. It has been for the 2 years that I've been here. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Laura so you can kind of run through these different scenarios.
Sure.
I was just kidding. We have 2 plans right now. We have an HMO plan and an HSA plan. The HMO is basically like when you go to the doctor, you just pay your copay and whatever. The HSA, you pay your deductible out of pocket. And then the district actually contributes a little bit over half of the employee deductible into an HSA savings account for them to help offset the cost that they have to pay upfront. So we only have a handful of people that, I think 4, that have the HSA plan. And then everybody else is on the other plan. So right now, there's only 1 employee who has coverage outside of just themselves. So we, the district, pay 100% for the employee coverage. So if you'll notice, that's why that's not listed on here. I didn't show employee anywhere because they don't pay anything. We
And
cover
we know
that.
why that is.
It's always been that way. I don't know. It's a
No, no.
perk.
I didn't know you don't like it.
why they're
Do we-
not.
Do we
because
know
of
why there's
cost.
only one employee that has?
Because of the cost.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the cost.
You'll see.
Yep. So, yeah, we have one employee on the HSA plan who is doing the employee spouse version. Otherwise, everyone else just takes the basically free insurance, just on themselves. So if you look, the top two are the HMO plan. The first charge is somebody making $20 an hour. The second one is someone making $25 an hour. And for anybody who's a numbers person, who I don't know if anyone is, I actually did, because the cost of the insurance is pre-tax, I did deduct it from their wages before I calculated what the taxes would be. So that's why it's not just like flat tax across the board. So I did take that into consideration. So somebody making $20 an hour, put it for a pay period for 40 hours, would have gross pay of $1,600. If that's, yeah, per pay period. So this is 80 hours. So, if they paid, this is a 100% of the insurance to add their spouse on the plan, they would only bring home $965. If they paid 85%, they bring home this much. And then if they paid 75%, they'd bring home this much, and then 50% would be here. So basically that'd be the district contributing 0, 15, 25, or 50% of the cost of their insurance. So you can see what a huge impact that makes. I mean, they get back an extra $200 every 2 weeks. This way, if we were contribute half, almost 100 here, about $50 here, but it adds up after a while. So same down here, this is same chart, same insurance, just someone making $25 an hour versus someone making 20. And then repeated down here for the cost of the HSA plan versus the HMO plan.
So most municipalities offer to help offset some of those costs for either spouse or family or children. I will tell you that since I've started here, we have had at least 3 candidates that we offered, and then they saw our benefit package and said, I can't. One lives in the community and commutes all the way to Naples because of benefits, because he had a young family.
I think it was more than 3.
I could think of 4 or 5.
I would say 5, as you and I talked about.
Yeah.
There was the,
So this, when we talk about staffing and we talk about retention, this plays a huge role in, hiring, bringing on, good folks to help build our team, and it would be an additional cost if the district chose to either transition and help supplement those health insurance costs, or we could keep it status quo, but understand that hiring and retaining staff has clearly been a difficult task over the years.
so it's not necessarily the pay, it's pay plus.
It's
the- And
benefits.
we kind of really hit last year and the year before, we
Yes.
really worked with the pay. So maybe this would be the next step
Well,
up.
What is employee only?
It's not on there because we pay 100%. There's no cost to the
It's
employee.
100% employee only.
Yes.
So then,
This extra amount is above and beyond that. So this is the cost of adding a spouse, adding the children,
okay, so
adding
but
the
we're
family.
100% on employee.
Correct.
It's these other
Correct.
additionals.
Yep, that's why it's not there.
And this is what happens a lot of times is employers, especially in smaller organizations or something around our size, they will offset contributions to benefits by saying, well, we're going to pay you X amount more. Problem with that is it's not apples to apples. Let's say if it's an extra $200 a month, you can't take that $200 and go and get the same insurance, because it's going to be quite a bit more expensive if you go, to a third party or outside. So a lot of employers have taken the stance that they're going to incorporate these benefits, matching or higher contributions, because employees aren't saying, oh, well, I'll take the money over the benefits, because they can't get that same benefit externally going through somewhere else. You would almost, have to give them 3 times as much pay in order for them to do it externally. So the value is not always realized when you're trying to offset benefits through pay.
Where are we at right
So-
now?
so
Which-
generally
Which
what-
category are we in?
Just
I mean,
The
are we at 100%, 85, 75, or 50 right now?
Neither, we're just.
Well, they-
we're at
100% for
100.
just
No, we're at-
employee. Yeah, and then for everybody else, 0.
Zero contribution outside of the employee.
So right now it's at 100 because the employee is paying if
100% of.
if
the
they
cost
want to,
of
if
it.
they want to add this coverage, they would be in the 100% column because they're paying 100% of the extra cost.
Now, one of the things too that we're looking at next year, and Laura's already reached out to Florida League of City or
I have 3 different people waiting.
three
so-
different folks to see if we can join a larger group like Florida League of Cities to see if we can get better pricing. So from that standpoint, we're evaluating that, but until it's open enrollment, it's hard to get numbers.
Just
So,
numbers,
so Doug,
numbers
what do
wise.
other employers out there do in this situation? Because I'm sure we are not unique in this. So what
That would
generally
vary.
do
I
other
would-
employers do?
I would say we need to look at apples to apples. What other government and utility agencies?
Well, this is a big ticket item for employees. Seriously.
Yeah.
So
Especially right now.
my question is, if you would go into that far column, 50%, okay, straight across the board, what's the net impact on the district? Bottom line,
It would depend on how many people choose each coverage. It's hard to calculate.
Like for instance,
assuming everybody does, with worst
But
case
again, I
scenario.
wouldn't know, would they pick spouse? Would they pick children? Would they do family? So it would depend.
Well, if we have people that we know,
Let's just add 1. +1. So it would be spouse. It wouldn't necessarily
kids.
change it.
Yeah.
As a spouse. would
Okay,
change.
yeah,
Coverage
yeah,
would
just do it
change.
that
So
way.
it depends.
Take the average, take the average between 998 and 1149. So meet it in the middle.
what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the HMO. So what Laura's saying, well, it's difficult because there's a lot of variables. All I'm saying is just come up with an average. So if we say all employees are going to at least do employee plus
Children.
something else, something else. So we'll take the average and there'll be a variance there. If every employee does it, it would be X. If 75% of the employees do it, it would be X. If 50% did X. So we need to know,
We
are we
need to
talking
know-
about, is this $1 million to our
That's
bottom
my
line?
point. What's,
You know,
that's my point.
what we
Because
can,
there's
I think-
nothing else that's more important to anybody than this,
Yeah, yeah.
right here.
Because I think what we're saying is, yeah, we understand the value here. Now we need to understand what the impact is. So we're gonna have to cut something else or figure out how we're gonna fund it.
so we can, like myself, I don't have children, I don't have family, you're paying for me, that's it. Laura doesn't take our insurance. So, I mean, there's a cost savings to the district for that. Daniel
Doesn't take our
doesn't
insurance.
take our insurance. So we can go back and look at individual and put a best guess based on each person's scenario
There-
and come back to you with the different rates.
There's some options that I see where employees get up to a certain dollar amount to leverage. And there's options. So if I have a family, I'm going to use all of my benefit credits to my insurance. If I'm Daniel and I don't, well,
Money in your
I'm
pocket.
not losing that. So I roll that into insurance or some other things. I don't necessarily, I don't see a whole lot of, I'm trying to think of examples where you would get that cash back. A lot of times it's not like a cash credit you would get at the end. You basically would leverage it for some other
So,
thing.
One of the things that the beach did prior to me leaving was a benefit allowance. And so there was some formula calculated, it was on everybody's paycheck, and it helped subsidize the additional cost of adding family, whatever. And so if you did have that additional cost or family, it was just, everybody had benefit allowance and it was $50, whatever it is. To me, it was just $50 in my pocket because I didn't have additional benefits. So
So you got the cash back. And the other thing too is also impacts to tenure. So the longer you're here, better your benefits. So that's an incentive, because if you've been here 5+ years, you may have accrued benefit credits that you couldn't leave
Mhm.
and get that same benefit
Good
at
point.
somewhere else as a year one employee.
Good.
potentially. So there's a lot of moving parts.
So it's a gotcha.
It's a gotcha.
It's a gotcha.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring this to your attention in the event you wanted us to consider any type of supplement. And if that's something you would even entertain.
Well, I think we need the feedback as to what is the market saying. If the market is saying this is the deal breaker, then we need to put our attention on this.
And also I'd ask the employees too. Ask our employees, which would you rather have?
See, it's hard when you don't have how this would truly impact them.
Well, if you get somebody that your wife works and she's got a job that's got a hell of a deal, I mean, how do you differentiate that from the guy that's got a wife? She doesn't have that deal.
And talking to current staff, Could they afford to put their spouse on the plan? Yeah, but it's gonna cost them more and they'd rather take the risk and, you know, God forbid something happen and their spouse gets sick. They'd rather take that risk than know that they have.
And that's what we need to educate too. Like, you know, hey, there's having health benefits are important. It's like insurance. You don't need it until you need it, you know? So some of that might just be education as
Yeah.
well.
The last
Okay,
thing I
so
want to
if
do is
you're
lose a good
asking-
employee because we don't have a competitive insurance
Benefit
plan.
package.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
An existing.
So if you're asking if I feel this is important to address this year, the answer is yes,
I agree.
in my
I
opinion.
agree as well.
Okay, we will,
That's critical.
we'll do a market analysis to see what our counterparts do, and what they offer for their, added dependents. And then, we'll bring that back to you and then we'll run a couple scenarios with what we believe to be, you know, each staff person would select and how that would impact our budget based on the
Yeah,
different.
can we have a, what's the word I want, not a schedule, breakdown, of all of our employees that show where we're at so that we can see how these
What do you mean?
play out.
No.
Yeah.
Do what?
HIPAA, I don't think you'd be able to look at it, even a summary.
We could
I'm
do,
not talking about names. I'm talking about bodies. I don't want any names.
Oh, okay.
I don't want any names.
What do you, I don't understand exactly what you're asking.
But if you
Yeah,
want,
I want to see just basically a schedule of what we have. I
What do
don't
you
see,
mean, what-
I don't care to see it by employee name. I just want to see it as to how many do we have this, how many do we have that? The
What
fall
is
this
this and
category,
that
try to
though?
determine if the-
today it's easy because all they get is, all they get is employee only. In the
Okay,
future, what?
Well, they can get this, they just don't.
Right,
This is offered to everyone.
Yeah.
But they don't take
at
it.
the current rate.
Yes.
But what we're trying to say
so
is
the current rate is how much?
that's what we're saying.
It's zero for employee. They don't pay anything. That's why they take it.
But for a
That's a
spouse,
no-brainer.
it's what you see.
so the next one up, the +1 is what's costing
Yeah.
a lot and they're choosing not.
Yeah.
to.
And I do believe this is a major issue. My own son just turned down 2 jobs because it did not have the benefit package that he
Why is
needed for his family. And the
family?
quality of the package, the health package was as important as the dollar figures
Absolutely.
Doug,
What-
it's not
what
cheaper. That's
was
their take home
included?
pay.
in the package.
Yeah, you're talking about a lot of money for self-insuring, immense amount of money.
That's their net pay, not their
Yeah,
cost.
$1,600 is after they pay.
If they take family, they only bring home $691.
So
For
if
2 weeks work.
If you're an employee making $20 an hour,
Okay, so it didn't show what it costs. It
no,
showed
that's
the
their net
difference.
pay.
It's $1,000.
So they start with $1,600
I got
after
it, I got it.
taxes and insurance, they bring home
I got you,
$692.
I got
So they lose
over a
$1,000.
2-week period.
Yes, that's for 2 weeks. They lose $1,000 for a 2 week, and $900 for a 2 week period in insurance.
And it's hard to rent anything around here for less than 2,000 a month.
So we'll work on that. The last thing that you asked us to add for this budget discussion, I know we only have about 13 minutes. You asked for your priority list from before when we met at Gateway Greens. And this is that priority list, and we just gave a quick status update to the right. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about this again.
I just had a question which Laura answered regarding ongoing and in progress. Got that.
What's the color coding for? Is it just
That-
ongoing in progress?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I wanted the difference between what's ongoing, because.
Green is completed.
Ongoing is gonna be, no matter what, it's always gonna be there, and in progress means.
What are the numbers?
Oh, that was the rank. That was the ranking.
Yeah, the priority.
Out of, you guys had what, 15 things that you ranked, and the average score, I ranked them lowest to highest. Low was good. You mean that was the highest priority? So,
So you can see we've completed some items. We've got some that are in, a lot that are in progress, and then some that are just constantly ongoing.
You know, it'd be great if you get a percentage of it. Because sometimes for me, like policy and procedure ongoing. But at the same time should be in progress, right?
Well, I guess the point of this is do you want to reprioritize anything that is yellow or
Okay.
blue or red? Or if you want to talk about something in green again, we can do that too.
No. No, I'm okay with that. There was one thing that I would like to mention. And that would be a marketing plan for the district. Found Pelican Preserve, if you live in Pelican Preserve, you basically have no idea who GSCDD is. And we, earlier in a meeting here, we talked about refrigerator magnets and things, whatever. And then I went to the PrAC meeting on Tuesday and found out that they also feel that many people in Gateway don't know who GSCDD is and what they do and all that sort of stuff. So I was wondering if we could maybe budget something this year. I know we're going to be talking about logos and things like that later on in the agenda, but start to think about putting together a marketing plan for GSCDD. And it would probably have to be specific, you know, Pelican would have to do its thing and the rest, but I think I think reaching out to people is going to be one of our biggest advantages going down the road. If they don't know who you are, they could care less. But if they do know who you are and realize that you do get benefit from GSCDD, that paints the picture a little different.
I think that falls under marketing and PR, under what we have existing.
They know who we are when it comes to October and we announce the quarterly assessment or the annual assessment. They know who
But I
we
think
are.
you're right.
But do they know where to go to when their grandkids are in town to get a swing set or something for them to, do they know where to go for fishing and whatever? Do they know all the other things? No,
But that's not part of Pelican.
no, it's not.
But that's the conversation that we had last meeting. Like, if that's something that Pelican wants to join, then let us know, because that needs to be addressed in the budget. But I get what you're saying. What I'm disappointed is the many times that Chelsea and I, and prior to Chelsea, we had reached out, and this is going back with Scott. Scott was overseeing Pelican. We will send out the information to the property manager and we say, you know, send it out and they don't.
They don't.
So I think there's an internal that Pelican needs to deal with it, and it either an understanding of, like, it doesn't matter how much we do it, if you send it out to one person and they choose not to do it. I mean, we just had that, you know, the fishing tournament was one, like, just, they didn't know. So I think there's a two-part on that. I think it's Pelican having education, and what I mean Pelican is the top people, like, look, it's important. Let the resident decide if they want to just junk mail or not.
But I think we also have started putting out our own emails and stuff on various things. If a project is about to happen in a certain part of not only Pelican, but Gateway, you know, you get an email. Starting on Monday, they're going to be trucks and stuff out at such and such an intersection, putting up signs for X, Y, and Z. So I think we've begun to do it, but I don't think it's organized.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of shooting at various things, but we haven't really put together a plan, an action plan.
The only thing I see here is some of these are singular high-level items and some are encompass multiple things. So this is a great, you know, let's say top level view. I think there's probably another step where if you look at like water meter replacement project, it's pretty straightforward. It's replacing the water meter. Wastewater, I think that's pretty straightforward. Capital improvement plan, that's the plan itself, but there's items under that. And especially like when we get to like Parks and Rec, we've got the like, where does the admin building fall in versus the actual park build out and the public the public utility building an initiative. Where do these line up in the priority list? And if there's, you know, it's one thing to say policies and procedures, yes. But are there certain, are there certain, you know, areas within policies and procedures that we need to focus attention on? So maybe having a second level deep in these would probably be beneficial.
There was another page that was the summary of, each of these was a header.
I think so,
There
yeah.
was stuff
Yeah.
underneath.
So we just need that second page.
The point was, is this still the priority list from the
Yeah.
group?
I think
And
so,
then-
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so I
we
think
can,
anybody wants to add anything.
we can delve
We don't
deeper
wanna-
into it and do that next layer
We don't wanna
and
be-
update it.
Yeah, this is plenty of work.
Yeah. Okay, so we're good and wanna take a 5-minute recess? Oh, yes,
Okay.
please.
I got that.
Hey, Chelsea, I have a question.
Did I miss anything?
No.
No. You didn't miss anything.